Come on, Twitch. Welcome me here. Come on, Twitch. Yeah, okay, we're live.
Hello and welcome to Storytime with Scrappy and Friends. With us today is I am bad at grammar. With us today are Harry and Nova, once more.
Rob Schneider is Starfix. I don't even know.
We have convened once more to First of all, happy Thanksgiving to those who celebrated it recently. And we have convened once more to read Erika by Pikachu, and that may be the last time I get to say that name, which is unfortunate.
If we ever read the sequel story, then you'll be able to say that a lot more often, but... A lot more, I should say, but... I don't know if we'll do that for a while.
Probably the last time for this year, anyways.
Yeah.
We have convened once more to read Erika by Pikachu and hopefully conclude our reading of their series before we transition to the next phase.
You can almost consider, like, the Star Wars stuff to be, like, the end of a season.
I guess so. When we last left our heroines, they were basically shilling the Pokegear product on behalf of Silphco, traveling to and from Johto to do so. And Sabrina has been kind of feeling a emotional disturbance in her relationship as of late. So we'll see how that goes.
Indeed.
This is Erika by Pikachu, Chapter 16, Distance. She was busy, so it made sense that we wouldn't be able to spend so much time. For Pete's sake. Let me restart. She was busy, so it made sense that we wouldn't be able to spend much time together. It was starting to feel like it had been months since Erika and I had spent much quality time together as friends, though, let alone as a couple.
Promotion for the Pokegear was beginning to wind down, and Janine had fallen conspicuously quiet about the Safari Zone. This meant it was mostly just me and my gym again, every day. It used to. And even though this used to be completely the norm for me, I now felt restless and bored. Could this be what cabin fever felt like? I had never noticed it before. I can't say I'm a fan. It was interesting to bring some other Pokemon into rotation during gym challenges. Espeon was now a permanent fixture in my team, and I was proud of him. But I wasn't proud of battling itself, as usual. It felt thankless. It felt like a job. In fact, now that I knew there was more to life, more to Pokemon, than simply battling, gym challenges just felt more mundane than ever. So you can imagine my relief when after a few dull weeks with only minimal contact with my girlfriend, she called to let me know that we would be meeting for tea on a Wednesday morning again.
It won't be the usual. It won't be the usual, unfortunately. It's mostly to catch up with Janine and see what everyone has learned.
Erika smiled gingerly, tilting her head. I resisted the urge to tell her I missed her adorable smile. That's okay, I nodded enthusiastically, happy to have the chance to see her at all. It will still be nice to finally take the morning off to see everyone again. Even though it had only been a month or so since we last held one of these, it felt oddly nostalgic to see Eric. Jasmine and the others sitting outside Down Fountain that Wednesday morning. Good morning, I waved to them.
Good day, Sabrina.
Jasmine called over to me fondly. Janine and Erika had just been chatting. Both waved to me too. Before long, Misty, Serge, Bugsy, and even Whitney had turned up too.
Oh, Bruno. No, Bruno today?
Erika thought aloud.
I believe he's busy today. Him and my father are doing some important training together or something.
Janine rubbed the back of her head sheepishly.
But that's okay. Why? Why did you come?
Bugsy sighed and mumbled to Whitney.
Because I had a nightmare last week that Celebi tried to punish me for trying to take its food, and it's all your fault.
Whitney pouted angrily. Whitney pouted angrily.
How is that my fault?
Bugsy argued defensively.
That was months ago, and you didn't even get near the food in the end. Hey, but behave, you two.
Jasmine meekly tried to keep the peace. Janine cleared her throat in a conspicuously fake way, but it worked. All of us were prepared to listen to what she wanted to say after weeks of silence. Not everyone seemed entirely happy with it.
Everyone, I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to help me for the last few months.
Janine took in a deep breath.
I've been doing a lot of reflecting, and I realized that being determined and pushy isn't enough to resolve an issue like this. Being pushy isn't enough to inspire Mr. Balba.
Erika had her arms crossed and was still pouting slightly, but I noticed her expression softened slightly while listening to Janine's reflection.
I seriously resent that I took advantage of a lot of your passions towards nature and Pokemon. I'm sorry.
Janine politely and quickly bowed to us. But it's still true that the Safari Zone is important to a lot of people. It's not like you've given up. I interjected. Erika sighed.
Yes, but this has been a logistical nightmare since day one. We've visited every major city in the region, and I don't believe any of us found anything particularly promising. Unsurprisingly, there's pretty much no room for that kind of thing near Goldenrod City, Azalea Town, or Violet City.
Bugsy shrugged.
There isn't really the possibility for that sort of thing near Olivine City, especially with all the battle facility preparation going on lately.
Jasmine awkwardly fiddled her fingers.
Plus, Mr. Chuck said it would probably be too dangerous to have in the mountains near Cianwood City.
Lieutenant Surge nodded, his arms crossed.
No surprises here either. After speaking with Old Man Price in Mahogany Town, it's clear that people love the Lake of Rage way too much to turn that area into some kind of safari park.
Janine smiled at all of us sadly, nodding the entire while. There was no sign of objection from her, but she still had that glimmer in her eyes.
I accept all this now, but giving up. Even if I have to search outside of Kanto and Johto, I want to see this through. It's just way too important to me. Janine, sweetie.
Erika responded wistfully, having seemingly forgiven her for the earlier frustration.
I won't ask or pressure anyone for your continued assistance. I'll instead just say that if you want to help me, if you want to help out in your own free time, it'd make me really happy.
And with that, the young, determined girl sat down and took a swig of tea.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. This is a Tanner roll, but he's not here. Yo, if you're oh gosh. Yo, if you're taking volunteers anyway, why the heck not?
A vaguely familiar voice suddenly interjected from nearby, causing many of us to turn our heads.
You!
Misty yelped in surprise.
What are you doing here?
Professor Oak's boisterous grandson, Blue Oak, had cruised along to our group seemingly without us noticing, clearly hoping to make some kind of dramatic entrance. He ran a hand through his hair and stood before us confident.
What does it look like I'm doing? I want to help out, obviously.
He said with a cocky grin that most of us were familiar with. He could probably tell that Misty, Serge, Erika, and I were relatively unimpressed by the vacant expressions on our faces.
Who?
Janine raised a finger curiously.
Blue. I was the Kanto champion for a bit, almost. 2 years ago now. Wow. Anyways, it's great that you're all so excited to see me, but I am actually serious. What exactly do you want to help with?
Janine tilted her head, still confused by Blue's sudden appearance. The boy rubbed the back of his head a little awkwardly.
To be honest, I've been doing a little research of my own Safari Zone ever since your meeting last year.
Oh, so he was sulking around back then.
Why?
Misty asked, staring at Blue suspiciously.
What have you been doing all this time anyway?
Blue sighed and put his hands on his hips, clearly hesitant to talk much about himself.
Don't know. Trying to figure out why I lost the championship, trying to get stronger, trying to find out more about what makes Pokemon tick. Nothing special. If you've been looking into the Safari Zone issue, then surely you reach the same conclusion as most of us.
Erika calmly explained, though she looked a little bit irked.
Most of Johto is seemingly just not appropriate for another big park like that. Yeah, maybe, but unlike you, busy lot, I've got a ton of free time and a bunch of experiences I still want to have. You sure about that? Gosh. Oh, you sure about that, kid? Ain't you got some important things to worry about, like Viridian Gym?
Asked Serge, bringing up those rumors from last year I'd almost forgotten about. Blue shoved his hands in his pockets.
That's actually not important right now. If that city doesn't want to let me fix the gym's reputation, that's actually not important right now. If that city doesn't want to let me fix the gym's reputation, it's on them. So how about I have a better look at that area around Cianwood City?
I noticed Erika sighing out the corner of my eye as she fanned herself. Whitney clenched her teeth.
Oi! Oi, you heard Jasmine, right? Didn't she say it was too dangerous past there? A dangerous place filled with wild Pokemon sounds like prime Safari Zone potential to me.
Blue shrugged and rested his hands behind his head nonchalantly. Whitney pouted bitterly.
Dudes, I'm not trying to be funny, but I've come closer to the top of the world than any of you. I'm trying to say, just don't worry
Misty grit her teeth.
Your attitude about all this rubs me the wrong way, acting like it's nothing.
He's right, though. I calmly put down my tea and spoke up. I wasn't a fan of how cocky Blue was as a trainer, but still, he was right. No matter what you think of him, he is considerably more powerful as a trainer than most of us. Blue smiled at me, and for a brief moment, he looked more genuine and cocky.
Look, I don't even really need anyone's approval to do this. I just figured at least Koga's kid should know. She has a name.
Misty retorted again.
Right, Janine. My bad.
Blue turned around ready to leave, clearly getting a little tired of the friendly atmosphere towards him. I had to admit, though, he was handling it all pretty well. It wasn't as though anyone truly disrespected him, but I think everyone thought the same thing back then. He was too arrogant about his own ability as a trainer, while being disrespectful to his Pokemon partners. But he was a child, barely 11 years old at the time, and he wiped out Kanto's gym leaders and the Pokemon League. Surely it was normal to make mistakes at a young age. Arceus knows I was still making childish mistakes to this day. Surge said the words that were on my mind.
I said we give the old kid the benefit of the doubt. Well, not like he can do much harm anyways. I agree.
Erika finally broke her silence with a quiet but clear vote of confidence. I nodded too, leaving Misty outnumbered and visibly irritated.
Ahem. In that case, you mind running your plan through with me, Blue?
Janine asked, trying to keep some semblance of cool and control over the situation.
Pretty simply, I'm gonna head over the cliff edge and see if the routes past there can be made safe enough for people to traverse regularly. If they are, I'll take old man Slowpoke there myself and inspire his butt off.
Janine stood up, clearly concerned by his proposal, but took a deep breath and collected herself before speaking.
And you're sure Balba will be safe with you? Chill, I won't even take him if it's not safe. If I let anything happen to him, it disgraced me as an ex-champion.
I heard Misty snort loudly, but the two exchanged playful grins despite her apparent hostility towards him.
Fine, whatever. Do what you need to do. I won't stop you.
Misty finally gave her own hesitant approval.
That's more like it. No time like the present then, right?
Blue, his spirits seemingly a little higher, turned, began to head for Saffron City.
Wait!
Misty called out after him, pouting.
The champion. Have you heard anything from them?
Blue turned back to face us briefly, grinning.
Hi, you're not worried about Pokemon Master like them, are you?
Misty huffed a smile. I knew how she felt. None of us had seen the champion for a while. But somehow, Blue's words reassured us that they were probably doing okay.
Heh. Well then, smell you later.
And off he ran. After that weird little incursion, everyone's moods actually seemed a little brighter. Janine decided to end the meeting on a relaxed but vaguely optimistic note. For once, it felt like Janine had gotten some genuine perspective on everything. I had only known her for a few months, but it almost felt like I could see her growing up before my very eyes. For me at least, the next couple months were a lot calmer. The Pokegear promotion cycle was crawling to a close, and the Safari Zone situation had relaxed too. We saw Janine every few weeks, and despite having no luck, her spirits were higher, her confidence improving. She had wrapped her head around why the Safari Zone of Fuchsia City inspired her, and she seemed so much freer for it. But my girlfriend was still busy, to put it like that. She was juggling her gym, reading for us, and trying to constantly organize other people as well as keep a close watch on Celadon City, which was still suffering from its own pollution issues in the east despite her best efforts. She would behave the same as always in social situations, kind, sweet, reliable, but I don't know, things didn't feel the same. Maybe the honeymoon phase of our relationship was just over. Maybe we had done something wrong, or maybe not. She seemed stressed, but as always, when I asked her how she was doing, she would simply tell me, "I'm fine. Please don't worry about it." I mean, I wanted to support her, and I was making an effort, but I seriously didn't know how, and she wasn't giving me an opportunity to either. I visited her gym more and more often, sometimes after work, sometimes on Wednesdays, sometimes at weekends. Yeah, she was working weekends more often too, or at least when she wasn't helping with Viridian Forest. I've been in Viridia so often, so I had to make up for it by opening weekends too, she would tell people. And it made sense, but to be honest, I don't think it was just me who noticed something was off either. One of her gym trainers, a young girl named Tina, recently asked me if anything strange had happened to Erika lately. She tried to word it in a way that wouldn't worry me, but I was already worried, and I could tell that she was too. Tina was one of the few remaining gym trainers who had been in Celadon gym since I first visited years ago. Back then, she was a bright-eyed preteen who brimmed with admiration for Erika. Due to our familiarity with each other, I found her easier to talk to than the other gym trainers.
The truth is, I've been thinking it might be time for me to move on from here soon.
Tina admitted to me one afternoon while Erika faced a challenger. What's been keeping you? Almost everyone else back then has left too. I raised an eyebrow.
Do you really, do you really need to ask?
Tina sighed.
I adore Erica. I adore this gym. Something feels off, and I don't want to leave like this.
So, she was worried that leaving might inconvenience Erika. I couldn't get Tina to admit she was worried about Erika, and she was obviously trying to keep me from worrying myself. She was very thoughtful for her age, and a good trainer, but she continued to speak to me when I visited the gym, as if nudging me to try to do something. Despite visiting the gym increasingly often, I didn't get much private time with Erika anyway though. At least let me cook for you tonight. You must be tired, right? I hinted to her Wednesday evening.
Don't be silly, sweetie. I wouldn't want to inconvenience you. Plus, I'd be poor company with all. Plus, I'd be poor company with all the work I need to be doing.
She smiled as she fanned herself. Things just weren't changing, and then I didn't feel any closer to figuring out how I could get her to talk to me. Should I just try harder? What was I doing wrong? Actually, the more I visited without much receptive behavior from her, the more those ugly memories from our past resurfaced and vexed me. I couldn't help but remember how I visited her gym more often until she snapped and told me to leave. I couldn't help but remember that we went for years without contact. I told myself that what happened back then didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was what had happened since we reconnected. But I found myself dwelling on it more and more the less time Erika spent with me. But now that I think about it, why? What exactly happened between us back then? Ruminating over it again, lying awake at night replaying that day over and over in my head like I used to. It was becoming more and more difficult to avoid thinking about the past and how similar it felt to what was happening now. I thought the past didn't matter anymore, but maybe that was because I had buried it away. Maybe those years of social isolation just laid it on the back of my mind all this time as a constant, subconscious reminder that if I ever messed up, I could be thrust back into the loneliness and emptiness again.
You have you have changed though, Sabrina.
Alakazam comforted me one evening as I vented my confusion to him. He was right, and he knew me very well. So why was his anxious, lost feeling so similar? Why was I suddenly faced with another situation where I had no idea what the other people in my life were thinking? Maybe I have, but if I have changed then, why am I suddenly worrying about the past now? I responded aloud, feeling the need to vocalize my anxiety rather than communicate it via messy and panicked thoughts.
The past has always mattered because our experiences inform who we are today. Not just you. One thing you would do well to remember is that social experiences are informed by the individual experiences of everyone involved. Everyone is a product of their past. Everyone has their own unique perspective on a situation that no one, not even someone with telepathy, can hope to fully comprehend. I'm trying to say, Sabrina.
Everyone is a product of the past. I had always been enough by my own perspective, and had always just assumed that my influence on other people's lives was ultimately insignificant. But surely I wasn't insignificant to the person who had asked me to date her, to the person who I now shared many candidly intimate moments with, the person who had said that she was proud of me. What's more, she was the one who reconnected with me. She chose to open communication with me after being defeated by the champion. That was, wow, that was about 2 years ago now, actually. That had completely blindsided me at the time, and I still didn't really know. Was she inspired by the champion, like I was? Or did the champion affect her in a completely different way now? Suddenly I felt like I actually didn't know Erika that well. She had taken care of me and escorted me from my dark and lonely shell, but all I had thought about before now was how much I looked up to her, how much she meant to my life. To be honest, I had not really given serious thought to what had made her the person she is, or even really why she ended up giving me so much attention herself. I felt stupid that in all of my worrying about her in our past, I had never really given much thought to what kind of life she was going through herself. I still felt powerless about it too.
Hey, what's the deal with Erika's fan anyway?
A gym trainer uh, named Julia asked me as Erika faced a challenger one day.
She's been fanning herself almost constantly lately, even though the weather's still not great. I asked her what was up, but she just laughs me off.
And Tina shrugged.
Do you know Sabrina? You know her a lot better than we do.
Yeah, I had no idea either. I didn't even know that the fan was weird. I thought Erika just liked fanning herself. At first, I didn't say anything in response. I just watched Erika with concern. Do you think you guys could help me persuade her to take a day off so she can visit the national park in Johto? Whispered to Tina, figuring I could trust her.
Oh!
Tina nodded enthusiastically.
She still hasn't had a proper day there yet, right? That's a great idea. Make it a date?
I raised an eyebrow.
Lately, Erika seems happiest when she knows she's going to see you soon.
Was that really true? I almost couldn't believe it. She seemed increasingly distant all the time lately. The women in Erika's gym really were all wonderful people. They all truly cared about her, and I was starting to get to know them even better than my own gym trainers, who still felt more like colleagues to me. Perhaps it was because I was always at Erika's gym for personal reasons. Either way, it made me wonder if my gym trainers cared for me in a similar way. With the help of Erika's colleagues, we picked out a day in the early summer that fit around her busy schedule. She could finally spend some quality time in National Park. We did this largely behind Erika's back, hoping for it to be a pleasant surprise for her. We expected she would try to object, but everyone insisted, and eventually Erika backed down and accepted. I sighed in relief and smiled. It was comforting to be surrounded by people who wanted to help. I did feel like I was doing the right thing, but Erika still felt so far away. It was difficult to feel genuinely good about it when I couldn't read her. She couldn't help but smile sweetly when she found out what we had done for her, but I could tell just from her face that she was heavily fatigued and hesitant about the whole thing. Well, hopefully not for long. I sat on the bench in National Park. I decided to arrive early because I wanted everything to go smoothly. And to be honest, I felt extremely restless just waiting in Kanto until Erika was ready. Over the space of a few weeks, myself and the others at Salon Gym had gone from just thinking about it, thinking something was off, to being quite sincerely worried about Erika. She had always looked tired, and the people who spent the most time with her could tell the easiest, and she still pretended she was okay. But even some of the others in our social circles were beginning to notice. I held a stone up to the sun and gazed into the light that shone through it. It was mystifying, fascinating that this kind of rock in its warm glow was somehow naturally occurring. I knew Erika would appreciate it. Bugsy, who was a regular patron and events organizer for the national park, had been asking after Erika too. A week or so ago, he asked me how she had been and noted that he hadn't seen her much lately. Once I told her I hoped to give her a day off in the national park and how much she loved the park, he pulled some strings and suggested I give her a sunstone as a gift. Really? Are you sure you can just give this to me? I raised an eyebrow as Bugsy insisted I take it.
Yes! Oh gosh. Yes, think of it as a super official thanks from us Johto gym leaders for helping us all connect and socialize with you Kanto lot. You're like the one person she's close to, right?
This was yet another thing that I hadn't really thought about before. You're the one person she's close to. His comment played again in my head as I waited for Erika in the park on that sunny Sunday morning, anxiously anticipating being able to give her the sunstone and show her how grateful everyone was to her hard work. How could I be the person Erika was close to when we had only been getting closer for the past 2 years? What about the people she spent time with before that? What about Jasmine? I twirled the sunstone in my hand. If she doesn't have many other people like that herself, then that means before we reconnected, she was... I thought aloud. My Pokegear was ringing, and it was Erika. I had no reason to be anxious, but I felt my stomach sink heavily into a pit anyway. Hey, what's up, sweetie? I put on a calm and confident charade to hide my anxiety.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, Sabrina. Something really nasty has come up and I can't make our date today. I'm sorry.
My stomach tied itself into knots. I bit my lip, and my hair floated a little as the disappointment washed over me. but did my best to avoid expressing my sadness audibly. Uh, What? What happened? Is everything okay? Are you okay? I asked, struggling not to let any panicked intonations escape my mouth.
It's Celadon City. There's Grimer and... I'm so sorry, Sabrina, I have to go. You didn't leave yet, right?
I slipped the sunstone into my pocket and stood up from the warmly sun park bench I was sat on. Oh, don't worry. I'm still in Kanto. We'll reschedule, so do whatever you need to. I lied.
Alright, I'm sorry. I'll see you soon. I'll see you soon, sweetie.
She hung up. I went home in silence. Damn it! Was I being selfish? Was I being unreasonable? I was feeling increasingly lonely, but I was convinced that something was wrong with Erika too. Was I worrying for her sake? For mine? It was so confusing. What could I do? Normally I may have given up, but Arceus, if anything, was becoming more and more obvious to me that Erika was a huge part of my life, and that I was actually a big part of hers too. I wasn't ready to just let things fade away again like they did before. I had grown up. It wouldn't be fair to either of us if I let her isolate myself, or if I ran away. But what could I do? Erika's colleagues came to me for help, and I had no idea. I couldn't even get her out of the national park. Was there no one else I could turn to? To be honest, I had not seriously considered going to someone else for help before. I had not really considered who else considered Erika a good friend, but the answer was pretty obvious. I met Jasmine through Erika, and she had become one of the people I was most comfortable calling a friend. She was a kind, gentle person who always made it obvious that she cared about us. Both of us. She was probably the first person in my life besides Erika that I had thought of so fondly. That meant something, didn't it? In fact, just after Erika and I started dating, Jasmine uncharacteristically insisted that I could open up to her, that she would be there for me if I needed it. For someone as shy as Jasmine, that must have taken a lot of courage. It would be rude to me not to take her up on that, right? I swallowed my pride. No, that's not quite right. Pride felt almost like a foreign concept to me now. I didn't care about pretending I was strong. I just wanted to help. Wanted help. I wanted to help. I wanted a voice of reason. The moment I dialed Jasmine's number into the video phone and saw her face that evening, I knew I'd make the right decision. I seriously didn't realize how much comfort I found in Jasmine and her voice until just now. I felt like I hadn't spoken to her in ages.
Sabrina, good evening!
She beamed warmly at me, her sweet and kind demeanor soothing my rigid soul.
This is a pleasant surprise. How are you?
Oh yeah, Jasmine had given me her number. This was probably the first time I'd ever actually called it. Despite that, she didn't make a big deal out of it. She immediately helped me feel comfortable. I I smiled and swallowed, but struggled to keep up my composure. I, I'm not doing so good, actually. I bit my lip. Jasmine looked at me, tilting her head sadly. Jasmine, Erika, I'm really worried about Erika, and I don't know what to do. I strung my thoughts together in a half-competent sentence. Jasmine rubbed her elbow and averted her eyes.
I see. Hmm.
She looked at me again.
I had noticed she was behaving differently, if that's what you mean, but didn't want to make something out of it. What happened?
I don't know. I don't know. She's being so distant, and I don't know how to help her when she won't even talk to me. Jasmine awkwardly tilted her head in the other direction, her long fine hair flopping over her shoulder. She sighed, evidently a little stressed by the conversation.
I'm not sure how to say this, Sabrina. I'm not sure how to say this. Sabrina, if she's being distant, you should try to close that gap, even if it means like confronting her directly.
I gulped and bit my lip, but I've asked her. She won't talk to me.
Please don't take this the wrong way. I mean, like you need to be more assertive. Don't give up when she says she's fine.
I blinked, feeling more anxious. What if that just makes things worse?
Sabrina,
Jasmine sighed.
I know you. I know why you're worried. But you have to remember that Erika cares about you. Everyone knows that. Communication is still a two-way street, though. It's super important that two people in any kind of relationship reach out to one another at times like this.
You you really think it could be that simple? I muttered meekly, still a little intimidated by the idea of taking a sort of tone with Erica. What if I ruined everything? And then she helped to laugh.
You won't know until you try, right? No matter what, it's still true that a relationship can't grow unless both people try to trust each other and communicate. Communication is so important here.
I paused, taking a deep breath in to collect myself. I wiped my eyes and gently patted myself on the cheeks. Jasmine smiled fondly at me, helping me to feel secure about the conversation. Jasmine, how are you so insightful about things like this? You talk like you're good with people, but you're... I hesitated to finish my sentence, realized I had potentially worded it in a hurtful way.
Shy?
She giggled.
It's okay. It is true that I'm shy. I just spend so much time with my cherished Pokemon, creatures I can't easily communicate with. As a result, I just kind of started to understand what's important about making communication work.
Once again impressed with how mature she was for her age, I sighed and relaxed into a fond smile, hoping to show her my gratitude. Thank you, sincerely, Jasmine. I'm really glad I decided to speak with you.
Oh, it's nothing. Maybe next time you don't have to call under serious circumstances. It's okay if you just want to have a casual chat too.
She grinned familiarly, and I relaxed further. I think I'll take you up on that, and hopefully we'll see you soon, in brighter spirits. We bid each other good night. I swiftly decided that tomorrow would be the day I confronted Erika. This time, I didn't plan on leaving until I got something out of her.
End chapter.
Oh boy. I was wondering when this was gonna happen. Yeah, the whole fanning thing. I don't know if Pika Pikachu like planned this stuff from the beginning, but it's a nice payoff to something you just expect to just be a character quirk, and it ends up being something actually significant like that. So I like that you did that.
I'm going to I'm going to get head to the washroom briefly. I'll be
Okay.
right back.
Fair enough. Oh boy.
Gosh,
Yeah,
I'm
you're
back.
Alright. Cool.
Dear. Alright, we are at the penultimate chapter of Erika, which is titled Erika.
Mm.
This, let's see. I left my glasses on the ironing board.
Oh,
I'll be right back.
okay.
Okay, now we can begin. Chapter 17. On Monday morning, I made my way to Celadon Gym, bright and early. Let me restart that. On Monday morning, I made my way to Celadon Gym, bright and early. I closed my gym for the day, because this was simply more important. Closing my gym for the day no longer felt like a big deal, but Erika still made sure to work every day she could. It was weird. It almost felt like we had swapped roles over the past year since she had originally managed since she originally managed to convince me to close my gym on Wednesdays. Being assertive, communicating. I could do this, right? Oh, good morning, Sabrina!
Said the overly familiar old man as I made my way through the gym stores. Good morning, I responded apathetically, gliding past him. Pardon intrusion, I muttered to myself. I was never here as a challenger after all, nor as a colleague. I simply hung around, like a delinquent teenager. Maybe that's what I was. I caught beauty trainer Julia pulling a weirdly disgusted face as she watched me walk in.
That weird old man, like, seriously greet you familiarly?
I blinked. Yeah? Why? Does he bother you? Julia pouted and crossed her arms.
To be honest, he does a bit, yeah. And I'm not the only one. One of the newer trainers, Michelle, tries to arrive extra early or come to work with me just so she doesn't have to put up with him looking at her.
I frowned. All this time I thought I was being unreasonable to find him irritating. Have you told Erika about this?
Yeah.
Tina joined the conversation, just wrapping up a battle with a challenger.
You already know what Sabrina thinks about this, huh, Sabrina? Wayne? You already know what Erika thinks about this, huh, Sabrina?
I went a little red in the face, and Tina laughed in an awkward, apologetic sort of way. Tina probably remembered my outburst years ago, and it was humiliating to think back on. I bet you and the others from back then stopped thinking of me as cool after that day. I smiled back at Tina awkwardly. She frowned, being a little melancholy and worried.
You okay? I didn't mean to bring that up.
Yes, don't worry. I shook my head and smiled. Tina sighed in relief.
Back then, some of the gym trainers, myself included, told Erika that you had a point about the old man. None of us have ever really liked him creeping around like that.
She gazed out the window in frustration.
Erika honestly doesn't like it either. She's just too nice. She refuses to inconvenience anyone. She inconvenienced you the other day, didn't she, Sabrina?
Julia frowned. Everyone looked at her awkwardly. There was definitely a gloomy vibe in the air.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it's horrible that Grimer and Muck suddenly started to appear in greater numbers here, but still.
I rubbed the bridge of my nose and sighed. I was really glad they were empathetic towards me, but this mood was just too depressing. Whatever it is that it's happening with Erika, I want to talk to her about it today. I'm making it my business. Tina's expression notably brightened as she beamed at me. Julia grinned too.
We're like counting on you then. For today, just make yourself at home. No matter what Erika says.
Make it up to me by taking care of some of Erika's obligations later. That way she'll have nothing to run away to. I winked reassuringly and gave them a thumbs up. They blinked at me, a little wide-eyed.
Forget about the past, Sabrina. You're definitely still extremely cool.
Tina praised, making me blush.
Yeah, you're like definitely a celeb gym leader.
Julia laughed. Jeez. Okay then. I spent the day at Salon Gym as attendant. I tried to speak with Erika a few times, but despite her face value friendliness, she was quiet and standoffish. Instead, I chatted with the gym trainers during their downtime between battles. Hey Tina, I mumbled it as the day drew to an end and the trainers all began to wrap up. When did Erika get her jump? Tina pouted in concern.
About a month ago. She never told you?
No, I usually love to hear her excited rants about grass Pokemon. I pouted.
Hey, we're gonna go help deal with the Grimer stuff in the east of the city.
Julia walked up to Tina and I, with Michelle trailing her like a puppy.
Tanya had to do errands, so she can't come. Well, the three of us should be enough, right?
Tina nodded confidently.
Of course.
She turned around and gave me a thumbs up.
We'll leave Erika in your capable hands. Tell her that we'll have the situation under control.
I winked back at her as they left, suddenly leaving the gym mostly empty besides Erika and I. Here we go.
What are you lot? What are you lot conspiring about?
Erika approached me, grinning behind her hand fan as she locked up.
I'm really happy to see you getting along well with everyone.
I smiled at her gently, while my insides were knotted up with anxiety. I was glad Erika wasn't telepathic, but she was still better at reading people's body language than I was. They're all wonderful people, and they care about you a lot.
I suppose they do.
Erika turned to tend to some of the plants, definitely appearing to be in a rush.
Sorry, sweetie. I don't think I can stick around and chat today either. There's been a Grimer outbreak to the east of the city, and I really need to keep it under control.
I composed myself and cleared my mind. Actually, the girls wanted me to tell you that they'll handle that for you today, so you can have a little bit more time to yourself. Erika's eyes lit from behind her fan.
I see. In that case, I should get to Viridian City.
I crossed my arms, tapping my elbow and grinning. Weren't you there pretty much all of Saturday? Erika turned away from me, gripping her fan tightly in her hand.
What are you, stalking me or... What are you, stalking me or something? Taking notes of everything I do?
I winced and clenched my fist slightly. I was increasingly worrying about making a mistake or saying the wrong thing, but I tried to maintain my composure. I can't believe this next line.
I know.
Years of resting bitch face had prepared me for moments like this. If I couldn't fake confidence now of all times, then what good was my act as the cool and collected mistress of psychic Pokemon?
Oh my
And then crossed my arm. Since you're not looking after yourself, and not letting anyone else look after you, maybe that's what I have to do. Erika fell silent and looked away from me.
I'm sorry, Sabrina. I really am. I shouldn't have said that, but it's true that I'm too busy. You should probably just go home for today.
I approached her and stood behind her. Even though she was a fair bit taller than me, she looked so small and tired all the time recently. I won't, I planted myself resolutely. Erika, everyone's worried about you. This isn't just about us. But even if it was, you need to talk to me. Let me be a part of this. She hesitantly turned to face me, standing herself up straighter and staring at me pleasantly, but still hiding her mouth behind that fan.
Sabrina, I told you I'm fine. I'm just so busy. So busy. If everyone just let me do my work, everything would go back to normal eventually.
I don't believe you. And even if I did, you still need to talk to me. Tell me what's wrong. What's happening in your head? Let me help. I want to support you. I locked eyes with her in concern, but she broke eye contact and looked away, fanning herself. I felt like I wasn't making any progress. I was becoming more panicked. Please take me seriously, Erika. Can't you at least put that fan away while we're talking?
No.
Why? I raised an eyebrow and grabbed the hand she held her fan in. Why are you always hiding your face from me like that? You don't need to hide anything from me. Please.
Oh, let go of me!
Erika pulled her hand back. I reached after her, staring, as my stomach churned over and over in anxiety. I suddenly felt like I was making a mistake I could never take back. Erika!
What? Why are you making such a big deal about the fan, Sabrina? Why does it matter? You want me to put it away so much, why don't you make me?
Erika, what?
Use your psychic powers and make me. In fact, why don't you just read my mind? I'm sure that'll be much easier for you than dealing with this waste of time.
For the first time since we reconnected, I was rendered utterly shell-shocked. I knew I had made myself intentionally vulnerable, but wow, just like that, her words undermined me effortlessly and completely. I was wholly unprepared. I flinched, jerking my outstretched hand back from her, holding it back to my chest defensively. Staring at her wide-eyed and biting my lip, tears quickly welled up, but my eyes were fixed open and I couldn't blink. Is that what you think of me after all?
I...
Erika stifled, her voice suddenly struggling to escape from her throat. Her eyes glazed over as she desperately avoided looking back into the eyes staring at her.
I'm...
I glared dead into her. No psychic powers, just my eyes, reddened from tears. Just my quivering lips, just my shaking shoulders. I felt like screaming, but instead, deeply buried insecurities began to pour from me in words. At first within a charade of composure. I had hoped you would know me better by now. How much I hate the thought of doing anything like psychic manipulation to even a stranger, let alone someone I care about. I bit my tongue and forced back the words of adoration that pushed to escape. I bitterly refused to give her the pleasure. Erika's eyes widened, distraught, her eyes filling with tears too. She meekly reached out to me. It was too late though. I felt myself slipping away. I escalated my voice in a futile effort to shout over my loud and complicated feelings. I wanted to ignore them. I was so upset, angry. I felt betrayed by the person I had built up to be my everything. My vision of Erika blurred as tears rose up below my eyelids, and my mind became overwhelmed. Not again. Not again. But, but, but hey, maybe it's understandable that no one can feel safe around me. Maybe I was born to either push everyone away or be the commodity of entertainment. I briefly dared to think if I could be more than that. I could be more than that. But if you of all people are that scared of me, if you think that I'm that dangerous, maybe it really would be better if I just slid back into my shell after all, like I did the last time it became a problem for you. That way it wouldn't be such a danger to anyone anymore. Now practically screaming, I gasped for air in between sobs and as insecurities erupted from my throat, and my head thumped increasingly loudly. I was visibly shaking and struggling to keep my mind above water, let alone stand up straight. My lip was bleeding. I found myself sinking back into the lonely abyss I had spent the last 2 years slowly crawling out from. I found my hair sticking up on end as my emotions overpowered me. I couldn't do this. Just one sign of distrust from my girlfriend was enough to send me completely over the edge like this? Pathetic. Pathetic. Yeah, no one should trust anyone with powers like these, huh? I heard a faint clacking sound of something falling, followed by a sharp, choked up breath in. I gradually felt warmth surrounding me, a hand gripping mine, a damp softness against my face. I fell silent.
Sabrina!
She wept, holding me tightly.
Sabrina, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
She tightened her grip around my body, pushing her face into mine. We slipped into the ground and knelt together on the floor.
Sabrina.
She stroked my hair and kissed my tear-soaked cheek.
Sabrina, I just want you to nod if you're listening, alright?
I nodded weakly. She gasped in relief through muttered her chokes. I breathed in deeply between weeps as I tried to remain calm and clear my thumping head again. She hugged my head, held it to her shoulder. Her fan was on the ground. Tears streamed from her eyes. Her breaths were scattered and heavy.
Sabrina,
She breathed in deeply, squeezing me.
I'm not scared of you. I've never, ever been scared of you. I've been so obtusely fixated on just me. And I foolishly lost myself in a moment of frustration and weakness. I said something that made light of your fears. Fears I knew about.
She paused and buried her face in my neck. I felt my clothes dampen.
I said something with the intent to... I said something with the intent to hurt you without considering the real consequences. And regretted it the moment I realized it had reached your ears. I did something horrible to you because I refused to face my own issues.
She wiped my eyes with her fingers before taking my cheeks in her hands and staring into my eyes. Her eyes were red. Her lips were shaking and dry.
I'm sorry.
She bit her lip, her eyes welling up again as she forced herself to look at me without averting her eyes this time.
I underestimated how much words could hurt, and now that I've done it, I feel sick. I never ever want to do that to you again. Even if you don't want to forgive me.
Erika, I choked. My arms hung limply by my sides. My hair started to float back down to my shoulders as my head quieted down. Why? Why?
My fault. It's just like you said. I haven't been taking care of myself or anyone I love. And I'm overwhelmed. I want to isolate myself until I'm good enough to be the person I'm supposed to be again. So I can be strong and mature and reliable again.
Finally finding some strength in my arms, I rubbed my own eyes and sat myself more comfortably. Sitting like an awkward mess on the floor was killing the blood flow to my feet. I continued to stare at Erika as my eyes slowly ran out of tears and my weeps quieted. I had never seen her eyes this red. I had never seen her looking this tired. I had never seen her lips shaking like that. After a brief silence, I finally scrambled some words together. I don't understand why you couldn't tell me these things even after I opened up to you so much myself. What am I to you if you can't trust me? My voice was still shaken, but after coming down slightly from my panic attack, part of me thought I had little left to lose. I still wanted to understand her, like I had for years. Erika held my hands in hers and huffed a laugh in between sniffs. She played with my fingers and opened her mouth, but it took a few moments for anything to come out.
Yeah, it's hypocritical, but I was scared to open up.
She looked at her hands to distract herself, again hesitant to look me in the eyes.
Since we reconnected, since we started dating, I thought it would be easiest for both of us if I was always the assertive and strong one for you. Someone you could rely on and feel safe around. I wanted to be the perfect girlfriend. It felt safest for me too. In my head, and you absolutely couldn't see me like this.
You always seemed perfect to me, and instinctively replied. And she scoffed.
Good actor. I was a good actor. Do you seriously still believe that? After what just happened?
She brought one of her hands back and ashamedly dragged it along her right and temple, sobbing quietly with regretful frustration.
It's just an act, Sabrina. I pretend I'm in control because being reliable and perfect is all I have. All I've ever had. I'm not reliable, I'm nothing. I'm useless.
I opened my mouth to argue, but she sternly held her hand in front of my face.
Please don't argue.
In response, I whimpered. She offered a weak smile as the tears welled up again.
I'm not nearly as strong as you think I am. I use that fan as a literal mask and put on a fake strong front in social situations. I just hide my face when I'm anxious or when I'm shaking so no one can tell. I, I use my nervous tick to hide all my other nervous ticks.
She forced an awkward, wistful laugh.
If I lose control, if something goes wrong, even if I'm just outside Celadon City, the only place where I actually feel like I have any kind of control over anything, I just genuinely can't handle it. Despite that weakness, I've never learned how to say no. I'm so desperate to be useful and responsible and helpful that I say yes to anyone who needs anything. I organize everyone. I unquestionably take on projects thinking, yes, sure, I can handle this. And maybe I can sometimes, but other times I'm just silently screaming for help because I've never learned how to actually ask for it.
Tears streamed down Erika's cheeks as she finally looked at me again, a weak smile on her face. I remember the day she asked me about Viridian Forest, and my heart sunk. You, the day you were asked to help with Viridian Forest, you were looking for me to tell you to take a break, weren't you? Erika frowned.
No, don't you dare take the blame for that. It's my fault if I can't say no. My fault trying to use you as an escape because I was a workaholic trying to make everyone happy all the time.
I tried to force a smile. And that's why you let that old man stick around? Even though he makes everyone in the gym uncomfortable? Erika laughed meekly and nodded.
Yeah.
She wiped her eyes.
I hate that stupid, creepy old man.
She laughed again.
I hate how he makes everyone feel. I have to be polite. I have to be proper and helpful and perfect.
I grimaced as I pieced together Erika's own self-image issues, which she had hidden from me for so long. I had idolized her so much that I never even imagined she felt these things about herself. I stroked her cheek and ran some fingers through her hair. She held her hand to mine and let out a quiet sob.
Sabrina,
She took a deep breath.
forgive me for being selfish, but I still have to make sure you know what you really are to me. Even if you think I'm fake, or you can't trust me, or you don't believe me because of what I just did, you have to know that what we've been through together has always been real.
I gulped anxiously, but the thumping in my head was gone as Erika tenderly hugged my hand to her face. Instead, the thumping had moved down to my chest. It was incessant, but it was warm. Erika? I bit my lip. Erika nodded.
You're my precious celebrity crush girlfriend, who I coolly asked out and then cried about later because I was so happy. You're also one of the closest friends I've ever had. I would never see you as dangerous, because there's no one who makes me feel as safe as you do.
She kissed my hand and leant her head into it, her mouth trembling and her voice growing shakier.
All the fun stuff and laughter, the tea, the dates, the afternoons in my gym, they were all real to me. As real as I've ever been. You got to know the real me, and that made everything feel worth it.
I knew that already. Of course I did. Yeah, I was upset. Yeah, I was hurt. But I couldn't even entertain the thought that what we had wasn't real. Sometimes it felt like we were the only two people on Earth, and I was content with it. Those moments are magic that no act could replicate. I smiled meekly through my blushing, trying to maintain eye contact with her as she continued.
Stressful stuff like going to Johto, being with you made it so much more bearable, easier for me to relax. Can't really put into words just how much nicer your mere presence makes obligations like that. Just how much you enrich my life. I've really loved almost every second I've spent with you.
Almost. I smirked shyly and gave her face a gentle rub, sensing an opportunity to lighten the mood slightly. Like besides when you gave yourself a hard time about the Claire thing? She groaned.
Oh, remember that?
How could I now remember that you took that brat's reign more personally than I did? Especially since you just said you do anything anyone asks of you. That's exactly what she said I was doing. Erika huffed and hid her face in my neck.
I was so ashamed and worried that I was just turning you into another me, making you feel obligated to do things dragging you along on fool's errands because I didn't know how to say no.
Shush. I frowned and stroked her hair. I genuinely wanted to do those things. Making myself try new things is helping me to grow up and change as a person. Even with the drama and the stress. I lifted her head up to face me and stared into her eyes determinedly. She stared back, wide-eyed. After a few moments, her face became several shades redder.
Sabrina, you know you're the only person who regularly catches me off guard like that, right? Or, I...
She sighed irritably.
Your eyes are so...
She placed her hands on mine and awkwardly nibbled her lip, evidently struggling to keep our eyes locked and fumbling over her words.
Jeez, Sabrina. Do I seriously have to spell it out for you?
I kept my eyes locked with hers, but I was becoming increasingly red-faced myself. I couldn't remember the last time my heart had raced this fast. Erika? I muttered, stroking her hands reassuringly. Her eyes began to well up with tears again as she took a sharp, determined breath in.
Sabrina, I love you. I'm in love with you. And I feel like I have been for a really long time. I can't believe it's taken so long for me to say that, and I wish from the bottom of my heart I had said it long before I hurt you today and possibly lost a chance of ever hearing you say you love me back.
Her voice cracked and squeaked towards the end there, but I quickly rushed to hold her face in my hand and pushed my forehead affectionately right into hers. She fell for my hand and intertwined her fingers in mine. She finally stared into my eyes without difficulty, as if a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. I opened my mouth to say something, but only an emotional squeak came out. I squeezed her hand in mine as I wrapped my mind around what she had said. My body felt red hot, and overwhelmed tears trickled down my cheeks again, but this time I was really, really happy. Of course I love you back. Erika, of course I love you. Even when I'm angry with you or don't understand you, I love you. You're like everything. I laughed awkwardly and smiled sweetly at her, realizing that I was really struggling to put my feelings into words. And you don't have to keep punishing yourself like this either. I forgive you, dummy.
Be silly.
Erika pouted, her face adorably close to mine. She was still so worried about hurting me, but at this point I honestly just wanted to pinch her cheeks.
Just because I went mushy on you doesn't mean you have to forgive me. I betrayed your trust and your feelings when you were trying to help me.
I squeezed her hand tighter and pecked her cheek affectionately. Yes, I'm still hurt, but I haven't been a perfect girlfriend either. We've been dating for almost a year, and I had no idea what you were going through. You should have talked to me, but I should have talked to you sooner too. Besides, if you really love me, then you aren't going anywhere. There's plenty of time in the future for us to be mad together and help each other get through these things. And then she huffed.
Yeah, okay. You win.
She sighed and relaxed her head against mine slightly.
You're too nice to me, honey. You keep making excuses for me, but...
She let go of my hand, which was probably because I was starting to feel clammy, though she was evidently still burdened with worries.
seriously can't begin to imagine what you see in me to begin with. My perfection is all an act. There's nothing actually interesting about me. Just a girl who likes plants. But you're like genuinely really cool. You're special. Everyone admires you.
Did I really win? Oh, Arceus, did she really believe what she was saying? I blinked in disbelief as I watched her sad, self-doubting eyes. Everyone admires you. I always have.
Why?
Erika yelped, clinging to my torso.
All I, all I do is pretend to be perfect. It's all I can do just to make up for being so boring, so dull. You're so popular. You act like you're not, but I really am dating like a celebrity, you know. But me, I refuse to ever, refuse to even be refuse to even be seen by anyone without makeup and a kimono on. Because that way I know at least if someone calls me plain or ugly, it's my fault.
Plain? I covered my mouth with my hand in shock. Plain? Ugly? Really? I grasped her face in my hands and looked at her sternly. You're kidding, right?
What?
She stared at me, pink-faced and pouting.
Don't make fun of me.
Oh, Arceus, she was serious? What? Erika, do you remember at school I used to stare at you all the time? You were the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. You had made every room you entered glow with life. Your eyes and hair sparkled in the sunlight and moonlight. Every time you talked about the beauty of nature and grass Pokemon, all I could think about was how it made you look just even more beautiful. Erika stared at me, her mouth agape and quivering adorably. I had never, ever seen her face this red.
Back in school, remember all that? Do you even remember how I awkwardly tried to sit with you and everything?
Yeah, I nodded fervently. They were some of the happiest days of my whole childhood, even if I didn't know what you were trying to do. Did you know that no one ever actually tried to be my friend back then? Erika raised an embarrassed eyebrow.
Wait, really? But you were so popular.
I then shook my head. It sure did not feel that way. Everyone was just scared of me. It felt like you were the only person who wasn't, well, for the most part. I blurred without thinking. Erika stared into my eyes sadly.
I, uh,
Then she averted her gaze.
I'm sorry. Everything. I've made so many stupid mistakes since we met. I pushed you away those years ago. And I thought I could make it up to you by pretending that I was more reliable than I actually am. I still can't imagine why you love me despite always hiding so much from you. Even if you tell me you, like, found me pretty.
Beautiful, I smirked.
Oh, whatever.
She pouted but couldn't help but smile, and I smiled back. This was good. I felt like it had taken a while to get here, but the moon was finally lighter. We were opening up to each other, and we were in love? Just, wow. Okay then, actually, you know what? I sniffed and rubbed my eyes dry, then clapped my hands to my own cheeks to wake myself up. I felt a sudden surge of optimism well up inside me. Let's talk about all that. I'm done pretending the past never happened, and I want us to understand each other more than ever. If I put on some tea, will you make all this up to me by spending the evening talking to me about, like, everything? Erika smiled, her mouth taking a sweet but shaky V-shaped as she began to stand up and dry her own eyes.
Alright, honey. But only if I get to make the tea. And chapter 17. Harry, you suck. You know how to break our hearts.
I knew this was coming eventually. Like when they brought up the whole like, Erika is like, having problems or something, and like not talking to anyone. I knew I had to be kind of quiet because I knew like this was about to happen, and yeah, I don't really have much to add to it. It's just, like that. It's just genuinely
Well done. Just very well done.
Yeah, that's very heartfelt and makes you feel things. It's especially relatable with the whole Erika having problems saying like no to people, because I have that issue as well. It's really
Yeah,
difficult.
Harry, can you give me some? Can you give me 10 pounds?
Oh god.
The passage of Erika seemingly just fearing that she'd like recede back to her earlier personality is just, that one hit hard.
Yeah.
What a relationship can give, it can take away just as easily.
Yeah. And there's always the worry that for a lot of people, I think everyone really, where you can make a lot of progress in terms of just yourself as a person, and there's always the worry that at some point, for whatever reason, you might end up reverting back to who you were before, and that is that can be a genuine fear sometimes.
Yeah, like when you have been making so much self-improvement with the help of an actual relationship, having that taken away from you is just I don't want to say it's a crutch being taken away from you, but it is a part of yourself being kind of just removed from the equation.
It feels like you're being ripped apart, basically.
Tearing me apart, Lisa!
Pretty much, yeah, it's just, yeah. Yeah, that... I'm a sucker for well-written romance stories like this, and I think this was done really well, so...
And it took me by surprise. I thought Erika was pregnant, was just fanning herself to keep herself cool.
That would have been that would be a twist on another level, but
I thought she was, or alternatively, I thought she was like hiding wounds, some blows to her face that had happened from someone else.
that could have also been a thing, I suppose.
Sabrina would have gone literally mental if she found that out, though.
Yeah, I'm not really sure this... yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That would have been interesting, but I don't think that's the kind of story Pika Blukachu wanted to tell. So...
No, thank you thank you for your performance. That was amazing.
You're very welcome.
yeah, you guys did pretty well trying to sell the emotion. It's not easy to do that.
It was a little it was a little bit easier for me because even though I'm not, I don't really have, I don't really struggle with, I don't really struggle with my own self-esteem because I know what I'm capable of. Uh, I know what I currently can and can't do, what I
Mm,
would have to do if I wanted to do something. I know exactly I know how to pace myself, and I know where exactly I should be setting goals for myself in order to be able to accomplish something that I know I truly want.
okay.
But uh, but it but this more comes from something in my past because there was this one person that was basically kind of uh, and basically was kind of like like almost exactly, or rather just taking almost the exact same approach that Erika was taking here,
Oh, okay.
because they didn't necessarily always try to hide their own flaws from me, but or rather or always try to hide their own insecurities from me, but uh, they were insistent that they really were at least still trying and trying to help themselves, and didn't and were kind of opposed to go back to therapy for a while because of a few bad experiences that they had, and they felt like and they felt like having me in their life would be a better option, since they don't really they feel like they don't do too well in therapy, so they feel like if they could talk more personally instead of eh, talk more personally to someone who they're usually around, as opposed to just a professional therapist who they have to make appointments to see.
Mm,
They kind of built that kind of trap for themselves, and so and then eventually it just got too much, and I eventually had to cut ties completely, because it was clear that no matter what it was clear that despite my own efforts, they would need to want to do things completely on their own accord, because as much as try as I might to convince them to do some other things, they either they either just said that they would keep it in mind, but never really got around to doing properly, or just didn't think they absolutely needed to do. And so eventually it all welled up, and now now we're separate, and now our communication's completely severed.
mm,
I'm sorry I got to that point.
some,
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes the best way to help is to just sever connection, because, there comes a point where you can't really do anything anymore, and it hurts a lot.
This
And
story has
yeah,
sorry, go on to no Nova.
yeah, it did hurt a lot. But it's like I said, even though I wasn't the one who was acting the way Erica did here, it still resonated with me, because I was thinking because not only was I thinking about that person, I was all in actually I was thinking about another friend who kind of almost eerily had a situation that was almost one for one the situation that happened here.
Hmm.
So it was definitely easy for me to convey the emotions as I was reading, because
Okay.
I basically because I've heard a lot about situations like this just through talking with friends and other people I used to communicate with.
Mm. Yeah, that's understandable.
This story has emphasized the importance of just having a healthy social circle, and I commend the story for that message. But
Yeah.
in real life, friends, in real life folks, keeping close to your social circle is important, especially when you need to just talk to them about personal issues. But they're not your therapist, and they can't really be.
No.
Like,
I
if
think,
you have the means and privilege to do so, then seek professional help if you believe that you need it.
yeah, there's nothing wrong with asking for advice from friends and whatnot, but um if it's like really serious, then it is best to see a professional. And I think another thing that this story kind of shows as well is that sometimes you just kind of need to talk to people. Like when you bottle emotions up so much, it's not really gonna help anyone, and it comes to a point where it just explodes, and it just becomes a complete mess for pretty much everyone involved. And the sooner you speak up about problems that you're having, the easier the healing process can be.
Yeah, this is a Pokemon story, so there's a fantastical element to it, but this this for lack of a better term, this Full House moment could have gotten much worse if Sabrina had far less self-discipline.
Yeah.
Like, most people aren't psychics in real life, but
No.
yeah, you don't really want to anger. What am I trying to say? Just don't anger your, just don't anger your loved ones. Don't hurt them needlessly.
Yeah.
Like, you'll generally not get to physical altercations, but you may push them away when you don't mean to.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that.
And like honestly, this chapter alone is honestly almost it almost feels like something that another person that I know might might benefit from reading, because my
Mm.
God, it's like I said, because it's like I said, it's almost eerily very similar to what what that person went through, and so and it's basically the message I've been trying to relate to them all this time. So it it definitely while while uh, while again you know, um, I may not necessarily been either one either one of the two characters here. It so definitely resonated with me, like I said, because cause I just know so much about how much keeping quiet about things, no matter what it is that's bothering you, can really affect you,
Yeah.
because it could end up making you say things you completely regret, or just have a more sour attitude in general, because you're you're too you're too conditioned to believe that that no one's really gonna take you seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Again, I would advise not to use your social circle as a quote-unquote crutch, but have faith in them that they will actually at least hear you out if you have a problem.
Yeah. They shouldn't be the end-all be-all, but friends should be able to help you. Push you in the right direction, so to speak.
And look at us giving us long, serious assessment when we have one chapter left.
This feels very much like a chapter of Till We Make Our Ascent.
Oh, man. I miss it.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, maybe Harui will come back too. Okay, you know, that's not fair. Watermelon actually has a decent upload schedule. We'll get a sequel to Till We Make Our Ascent before Devil is a Part-Timer Season 2, and I stand by that.
I mean, at this point I wouldn't be surprised.
Alright, we have gotten our feels, and there's still one more chapter to go.
Alright, let's see how this goes.
This is for what may be the last time for this year. Erika by Pika Blue Kachu, the greatest name ever. Chapter 18, Sabrina. The final chapter, and it's mostly from Erika's perspective. So I guess I take over narration this one time. Where to begin? Let's start at the very beginning then. I was born in Celadon City to a wealthy and respected family. I was a healthy baby girl who immediately found an affinity with things like flowers and cute animals. Okay, you know those faint, lingering memories you have of your earliest years? Nostalgic associations with sights and scents? The earliest thing I can recall is a smell. A flower? Perfume? I'm still not sure what exactly it was. My family owns a perfume business, as I'm sure you already know. Okay, there's the anime reference. So unfortunately, I simply can't place whether my memory of that smell came from a perfume or the flower the perfume was made with. There used to be so many flowers in Celadon. Did you know that? Near my family mansion, there was a field of them. But throughout my childhood, I saw the flowers and plant life around the mansion and the rest of the city slowly shrivel away and die. Anyway, my first word was...
Maybe we don't need to go that far back.
Sabrina playfully poked at my hairband by lifting her teaspoon with her telekinesis. Adorable. She was leaning on my table, her chin in her palm, her deep magenta eyes staring dotingly into mine. I was still anxious and on edge from earlier, and my heart was throbbing in what felt like the pits of my stomach. I was still biting my dried and chapped lips. I subconsciously reached for my fan, but it wasn't there. Sabrina had convinced me to put it away for now. Instead, I fidgeted with my teacup and struggled to maintain contact with her gorgeous eyes. I think the only thing helping me keep it together at that point was Sabrina's protective presence. I couldn't remember the last time I felt so socially vulnerable and weak. A lock of her cool, steel blue hair slipped down in front of her face, and she subconsciously puffed it away. That's another habit of hers I've always found so cool. It's like she doesn't even know she's doing it, but it makes her look like an action movie star. I giggled gently but slightly awkwardly. Don't worry, I was kidding. I wondered how long it would take you to notice.
The anecdote about the smell of flowers was really interesting.
She mused dreamily, reassuring me.
I just love it when you get all lost in thought on nature and stuff, so I wanted to hear more.
When she said things like that, I found it much easier to believe she cared, though I admittedly still struggle to understand why. I took in a deep breath, grasping my cup of hot tea tightly in my hands to calm myself. I stared her back in her beautiful, protective eyes. Eyes that placed a trust in me I didn't feel like I deserved. I felt to trust her in return before I continued. So, school. We first met in trainer's school. I was in a year above you, so we didn't share any classes. But I remember the first time I saw you pretty well, but because...
It's okay.
Sabrina fumbled, twirling a teaspoon in her hand. She went slightly pink.
I knew this was coming, but you know more about my incidents than anyone else. That's probably how it should be considering our relationship. It's really okay, I promise.
Right. I sighed and continued. The other kids and teachers all said that it was your powers that broke the windows that day. Some of them were really rude about it, too. I was simply walking through with some of my classmates when it happened, but the noise was loud and I was admittedly really shocked. I thought a young Pokemon had accidentally let off a powerful attack nearby, because when I noticed you there with your hair stood up and your hands covering your face, you looked more scared than anyone else in that room.
A young Pokemon losing control would have been much cuter. That's so like you.
Sabrina beamed. I felt my uneasy stomach warm a little at her expression. Never doubt your own cuteness while I'm around. I grinned meekly back. Sabrina leaned her mouth into her palm and blushed before getting her own back on me.
Anyway, did you know that my powers became overwhelmed because I was so shocked by how beautiful you were?
I felt my face go bright red and I stared down at my teacup. You're kidding. Please don't joke about that kind of thing, sweetie. Sabrina's hand grasped mine reassuringly from across the table. She ran a thumb against my hand, beckoning me to look back at her.
I'm not kidding. I thought you were the most beautiful thing I had ever seen, and mentally, I didn't handle it so well, because suddenly life seemed more complicated to me than I'd ever have been before.
Like, love at first sight? I blinked, wide-eyed, my face becoming even redder and my head feeling increasingly hot as I ran over the possibility that the coolest girl I had ever met immediately thought that I, of all people, was that beautiful to her. Sabrina smirked and sighed coolly.
Not quite. It was more like inspiration. Your healthy and bright aura alone convinced me that there was this whole other side of life, besides studying and talent. It made me seriously think about the things like friendship and cherishing for the first time.
Aura? Like the way Lucario supposedly sees a person's aura?
I don't know. Maybe? I think being a psychic does mean I can easily read the vibes other people give off. Yours was just overwhelmingly kind and bright. I tried to ignore it, but long story short, I couldn't. Anyway, go on.
She nodded enthusiastically. I gently tried to shake off some of the flattery and continued, despite my racing heart. Yeah, that first time I saw you was really memorable, to say the least. To be honest, I had been hoping to see you again just to make sure you were okay, no matter what other people said about you. I couldn't stop worrying about it if you were hurt or scared. When I saw you, though, you seemed like a different person. You were surrounded by kids, older than you, younger than you, all buzzing, all buzzing excitedly. I could barely get a look in. With Arceus, you appeared to handle it all so calmly, signing autographs and answering all those questions like they didn't bug you. I know now that they did bug you, but back then I had no idea, and I didn't know you were so lonely either. All I knew is that you stood out like unlike anyone I had ever seen. You really were pretty too. Your hair and eyes were like otherworldly. The way you always lo- the way you always locked eyes with me was captivating, mystifying, and well, I suddenly became self-conscious of Sabrina's deep gaze. She continued she continued to stare into me, unblinking, while I blinked a bunch and struggled to maintain eye contact. So, did you notice me staring back at you?
Of course I did.
Sabrina giggled.
I didn't exactly try very hard to hide my staring in the end. Sorry.
I shook my head. I shook my head and beamed at her. No, it's fine. I kind of figured it. At first, I thought it was rude to stare back, but you made me feel so special. And on top of the fascination I felt towards you, I felt like I was happy to return your invitation. She smiled warmly back at me, squeezing my hand again.
That's a relief. I had always hoped it was something like that, to be honest. Sorry. I really wanted to talk to you, to do anything but stare, but my social skills sucked. We were awkward kids.
Aren't we all? Sabrina laughed a little meekly. I giggled and squeezed her hand back. I wiped a loose tear from my eye. We were. And I really struggled to act like I did around most of my classmates or friends because I had like wait. And I really struggled to act like I did around most of my classmates or friends because I had like the biggest crush on you. Sabrina's hands go a little clammy and her face went red. So cute.
Really? Even back then? What, when I was a wimpy little kid?
Yes. Actually, a lot of the kids had celebrity crushes on you, myself included, because you always seemed really cool and scary, never wimpy. Once I felt like you were giving me attention, though, Arceus, it was really difficult to keep you out of my mind. I would lie awake at night daydreaming about doing things like holding hands with you, being carried by you, going to the school dance with you, and sharing my first kiss with you, and other things. I felt like I could see steam tumbling out of Sabrina's red ears. Her mouth hung open, her mouth hung open and her eyes glazed over. I couldn't help but grin with glee, and gave her hand a small tug. Come here. I leaned over the table and gave her a quick peck on the lips, stroking her hair reassuringly. She she kissed me back and shot me a wobbly, melted smile, before awkwardly taking a sip of her tea.
We we already did most of those things, but hearing you say that is...
Her fringe covered her flustered face, and she squeaked quietly.
I I'm I I'm sorry that we couldn't do the school dance, though.
Oh. I smiled sheepishly and tilted my head. It's all right. We were probably too awkward to start dating, even if our families didn't remove us from school. I saw Sabrina pout and sigh as she leant on her hand again.
Actually, I've always wanted to know how you reacted to me being taken out of school. I felt like we had a schedule of some kind or something, and I was taken away from it.
She slumped into her arms and hid her face.
I always wondered if it hurt, and thinking about that hurt me too.
I gave Sabrina's I gave Sabrina's arm a gentle rub and squeezed it. It sucked. It really, really sucked. I was already having a really bad week because I knew my family intended to withdraw me soon too. I definitely remember bawling my eyes out, wondering if I'd ever see you again. I imagine it felt a little like how being dumped would feel. But I was admittedly relieved that you were taken from me and not the other way around. Sabrina pouted, resting her adorable pretty head on her arm on the table and staring at me, a few tears gathering in her eyes.
Why do you say that?
Why do you think? I giggled awkwardly. Because it sucked, and I would rather feel like that myself than have you go through it.
Erika.
Sabrina frowned. Sabrina frowned, her lip quivering a little.
It doesn't seem fair on yourself.
You'd think the same thing in my situation, though, wouldn't you? It's just how it is with love sometimes. I noticed Sabrina bite her lip and avert her gaze from me briefly. Her face turned a few shades pinker.
Well, I hope neither of us ever finds out what getting dumped actually feels like.
I gripped my teacup in my hands as my heart skipped a beat. The heat rushing from my cup up through my arms and to my flustered head. I beamed affectionately at her. Yeah, I really hope not either. A kind of intoxicatingly sweet and fluffy mood briefly filled the air after that, as her words moved in and settled at home in my head. The thought that she still wanted to be with me for as long as possible, despite what I did, made me feel like the future could be wonderful if I didn't somehow ruin it. The mere hint that I could spend the rest of my life with her was... That mushy high faded after a few minutes, and we both giggled awkwardly. I decided to break the silence by asking something I was curious about. So, while we're on the subject of childhood crushes, when did you realize you liked me? I nervously averted my gaze again, looking at my almost empty teacup and distracting myself by refilling it from the pot. Still pink, Sabrina tapped her finger on the table.
Don't laugh.
I wouldn't dare. But I can't promise I won't find it cute. She smiled meekly.
Ah, fine.
And paused.
I, to tell you the truth, I didn't fully comprehend my feelings towards you until you kissed me.
I blinked wide-eyed, trying not to choke on my hot tea. Face reddened again. The room really did feel extremely hot. I felt a twinge of guilt. Really? Goodness, Sabrina, I'm so sorry if it seems like I pressured you into that with how assertive I was being. I took all the signals of our intimacy and... Sabrina shook her head and waved her hands.
No, shh.
She giggled, relaxing a little.
No, without your sort of friendship and you declaring we were dating, none of this would have happened. I may never have realized.
She tilted her head and stared at the ceiling, lost in thought as my mouth hung open in embarrassment. She then continued her thought.
You kissing me and me realizing that my feelings for you were romantic was one of the most emotionally enriching, happiest moments of my whole life. And I'm pretty sure you asked me if I was comfortable, and I told you I wanted to be closer to you anyway.
She smiled at me sheepishly.
I mean, we're both awkward young adults, right? We worked with the messy signals we had. Please don't feel bad. I really did need you to kiss me that.
I held my hand over my chest and breathed a small sigh of relief, though I was still embarrassed. In that case, that is really cute. Sabrina rubbed the back of her head, going a little pink again.
I mean, like, it felt like something I'd always wanted, but I'm afraid I cannot pinpoint when exactly my feelings of admiration for you became romantic.
That's okay. I beamed at her. It's not really important. I was just curious. I'm still surprised you weren't put off of me by some of the things I've done. I pouted, gripping my cup tightly again as my stomach tied itself in knots, and I remembered what we were really here to talk about. Sabrina huffed a gentle smile at me, helping me to feel at ease in her presence again.
Take your time. No matter what happened in the past, I fall in love with you in the present.
Ah, jeez. I went bright red again, fighting back the urge to hide my awkward, ugly mouth. Fighting back the urge to hide my awkward, ugly mouth with my fan. I composed myself with a sip of tea. All right, let's see. After we left school, I didn't see you again for years. After a few years of homeschooling and behavior lessons, I was able to swiftly succeed as the new gym leader of Celadon City Gym. With my knowledge of grass-type Pokemon and plants, it wasn't at all difficult. What was truly intimidating was my self-set challenge of trying to restore Celadon City's natural side. Pardon me. What was truly intimidating was my self-set challenge of trying to restore Celadon City's natural side after years of worsening pollution. In the years since I became this city's gym leader, I felt like I'm engulfed in a war between industrialization and the fading cries of nature. You already know about all that. But even being able to begin my own projects was difficult without any personal freedom. I established a rule that Celadon gym leaders should be women, because I hoped for young women to be able to come to my gym or myself for solace and guidance. And also because I wanted to prove to my family that I was a responsible and reliable role model in my independence. You may not remember this, but I used to be followed everywhere by family maids and servants. I scarcely had room to breathe, act, or think independently. In fact, it's because of this that so many people saw me as a princess. My gym leader title, the nature-loving princess, came from my family's urgency to have an overprotective entourage shadowing me at all times. I could not shake this chafing security until I promised my family that I could be responsible and ladylike enough without them. I spent most of my homeschool years striving desperately for independence by tirelessly practicing my public persona. That's where the fan comes from. A fail-safe mask to prevent me from showing any signs of faltering demeanor in public or social situations. I had to be proper, you know. It helped me to feel It helped me to feel secure and in control. I never really did feel truly free or independent, though. Once I had escaped from my family's surveillance, I was instead trapped by the way my own personality had developed. I drew a strict line for myself, valuing responsibility and reliability over things like emotional connections. So I made myself reliable to other gym leaders and my gym trainers. I encouraged healthy networking and social activities, but scarcely let myself really open up or cause them any inconveniences. I seem close to Jasmine, and she is a wonderful girl. I wouldn't say we are truly close. We truly are close. I thought I had mostly gotten over you at this point, but I didn't develop lasting feelings for anyone else either. Maybe because of my distant perfection act, or my fear of my real self being too dull or improper for anyone to like. That's one of the reasons I was so thrown for a loop when you re-entered my life. You reminded me of how simple things felt at school, and the sheer power of your Pokemon was awe-inspiring. While I was able to maintain my composure around you at first, your power and coolness factor had grown considerably since school, and it became really, really hard for me to keep you out of my head again. It made me think that I really missed seeing you, and at first I was overjoyed that you were visiting me. For a while, you being near me was the most emotionally satisfying thing I'd experienced since my family congratulated me for my progress on running the gym. Finally actually having conversations with you. I'll never forget how happy that made me feel.
Me too.
Sabrina nodded happily.
I do remember how, even though I didn't say much at first, you would still talk passionately to me about grass Pokemon or plants you loved, and I always did love to hear about you talking about nature. Did you ever get a Bulbasaur?
I blinked for a moment as I remembered telling Sabrina that Bulbasaur was my favorite Pokemon. I can't believe you remember that. I giggled. But no, I didn't. And you know, I think my favorite Pokemon species is Victreebel now, anyway. I have such a strong attachment to mine. I've been with her since she was a little Bellsprout. She's really like the backbone of my party and my career as a trainer. I beamed proudly at Victreebel, who was basking in the dimming sunlight. What about you? Is your favorite still Alakazam? Alakazam? Sabrina giggled back and scratched her face a little.
Yeah.
He grinned.
But maybe saying that is cheating. My Alakazam has been one of my most trustworthy and insightful friends and companions for years now.
I nodded at her warmly, taking another deep breath to try and keep composed before continuing. I think it was because being around you and talking to you more made me so happy that I eventually worried I could lose sight of what I was supposed to be, or could lose everything I'd worked so hard for. Being near you was making it really difficult to keep up. Being near you is making it really difficult to keep up my perfection act. But inappropriate things like attraction and frustration during work hours, nonetheless. You made me laugh, and I hate my laugh. It's so...
Your laugh is adorable.
Sabrina pouted, staring at me. I shut my eyes and took in a deep breath, trying to stop my face from heating up again.
Your laugh is my favorite laugh on Earth. I'm spitting with your laugh, and I'm always a little disappointed when you try to hide it.
Too late. My head felt like it was about to explode again. Can't believe my girlfriend loves my dumb, annoying, snorty laughter. What the hell? She fiddled with my hand and smiled awkwardly.
And because I know it's coming, I want to apologize for handling my jealousy and clinginess so badly back then. For reasons I didn't even understand, I couldn't stand the possibility that you were closer to one of your gym trainers than me, even though they were such wonderful people and I barely knew you.
I gave her hand. I gave her hand a little squeeze back and heaved anxiously. I know, but I enabled it at first because your possessiveness over me actually made me feel really good. I shouldn't have, I know, but before we knew it, things escalated in a really unhealthy way. We both kind of frowned at each other for a few moments, our hands becoming clammy, but we didn't want to let go of one another anyway. The mood was becoming heavier. With difficulty, I made myself continue. You can probably put things together for yourself by this point, but basically, yeah. I became increasingly self-conscious about how you coming to the gym was making me look publicly. It was making me look publicly. I was too scared to be honest to you about this. I didn't want you to leave, so I told white lies and half-truths that try and distance us from each other, but that was childish. I should have told you my issues and priorities about my public persona outright, but I refused to place that much trust in you right up until today. Instead, things just escalated until... Then I stopped. I couldn't keep going. The words got caught in my throat. I bit my lip hard, again, as I struggled to put into words what happened next. I hate that stupid old man. Sabrina rolled her eyes and pouted again, trying to lighten the mood a little. Wait, that was you speaking.
Yeah. I hate that stupid old man.
Sabrina rolled her eyes and pouted again, trying to lighten the mood a little.
We both exploded. I literally exploded, and you had enough.
Sabrina's attempt at humor went right over my head, though. Instead, my head was rapidly reminded about the disgusting mistakes I had made, the ones I had been trying to ignore for years. Don't say that about yourself, please. I mumbled, my lips quivering again as I could only remember how I shouted at her when she caused the gym windows to shatter. I'll be ashamed of how I treated you that day for the rest of my life. You wanted help and comfort, but I just pushed you away. At first, I just wanted you to take a step back, but you... My eyes started watering again. You left. You left for good. I scared you away from me. I choked the words as they left my throat, and I held my sleeves to my eyes, dabbing the building tears. I breathed in sharply. She opened her mouth to say something, but nothing came out. Why would she try to make excuses for me anyway? She was the one I hurt so much. All I did was hurt her. and I refused to take responsibility for that. The days and weeks following, I thought, surely she'll come back. But you didn't. Of course you didn't after what I did. I didn't want to call you. I was too proud. Or maybe I was too scared of what you'd say, of what you'd say. I was being a stupid, irresponsible, and cruel child. Once again, I spent many nights crying as I realized I spent many nights crying as I realized that I had forfeited the right. I had forfeited the right to even try being your friend, let alone confessing my feelings to you. Sabrina gently put her hand on mine and gazed at me lovingly, but I pulled my hand back reactively. I felt a shame well up inside me, not wanting to desecrate her with my revolting and unworthy touch. I don't deserve you. I've done nothing to deserve you. Even after we reconnected, I just pretended like the past didn't even happen. I brushed that day under the rug like I do all of my other problems. I kept up this facade and dragged you along for almost 2 years pretending that everything was okay. I breathed in sharply again as tears trailed from my eyes. I clutched my knee under the table and rubbed my face in my kimono sleeve with my other arm. I couldn't even look at her. I thought I was supposed to be a good, caring, and nurturing person, but everything I had done to her from back then to now suddenly fell into perspective. All I could think was how could she ever be able to truly trust me? And today I did the same thing again. I laughed meekly in between sobs. Even though I'm supposed to be an adult now, we're supposed to have grown. I treated one of your most personal issues so carelessly, and with such resentment. Instead of trying to understand you or giving you any way to understand me back.
Erika, it's okay.
It's not. I mistreated you time and time again, and you still treated me with such undeserved kindness and adoration all this time. Sabrina, I clenched my fist and bit my lip until it bled as tears streamed down my cheeks. Words no longer worked. I was increasingly only able to coax out pathetic sobs and squeaks. I felt like I was barely able to get air to my lungs in between my exhausted, choked breaths. I covered my face in my hands and keeled? Oh gosh. I covered my face in my hands and keeled over the table. Crying escalated into... And for the love of my life, I was convinced I deserved to lose. Why did I ever think talking about it would help? All I had done was make me realize that I had repeatedly been ungrateful and unreasonable and secretive to the loneliest and most beautiful friend I've ever had, just because I was so scared about how the world perceived me. Just because I felt like I had to make up for my dullness, my lack of freedom, my urge to have people rely on me by being some fake, perfect person. But I guess it was an important realization. Maybe I wouldn't make this mistake again. If I were ever lucky enough to become this close to someone else again. Just as I was convincing myself that I would be alone again, I felt warm arms wrap around me from behind and lift me off the table. I felt her lips on my hair. She squeezed me with assurance, but my mind rejected her company and continued to bawl. I turned towards her and tried to push her away so I could return to solitude. Gently balling my fists against her shoulders, though terrified to cause her more pain than I had. But she held on to me. She refused to let go. I ran out of strength and collapsed into her embrace, my tear-soaked face staining her shoulder and chest.
It's okay. I love you.
It's not, I wanted to shout, but I couldn't. Maybe I didn't want to. Maybe I wanted to hold her while I still could. I gripped her clothes like my life depended on it, and I screamed. Years of clinging to a strong facade in spite of the piled up responsibilities, stresses, and regrets bubbled up and exploded from my head like ugly weeds onto the only person I had ever met who still saw me through them.
I love you, Erika.
She repeated. She stroked my hair and grasped me in her strong, protective arms. I finally allowed myself to sink into her embrace, partially through exhaustion, partially because I never wanted her to leave again. And I believed her. I was so tired of not believing her. Now that she had me and I had her, all I could think about was that I was a fool to take her for granted. When I may never meet anyone else who accepted and loved me, who accepted and loved the real me like this. She didn't even really need to say anything. Her feelings were conveyed through her actions. The me I had trapped behind a mask for so long was finally given the space to cry my soul out into someone I had always seen as a kindred spirit, and she cried back into me. She held all of me with such passion and care, even the ugly imperfections and flaws. Somehow, I began to feel like she understood me. Something clicked. I felt like I understood her more than I ever had before, too. What a fulfilling feeling it was.
And now we switch back to Sabrina's perspective.
Yeah.
Drink something, I pleaded Erika, pouring her a fresh cup of tea and setting aside a glass of water for her just in case she needed it. I thought I could cry, but you surprised me. Erika giggled meekly and wiped a few remaining tears from her red eyes.
I've always been a crier, actually. I cried a lot every time you left my life in the past. I'm a naturally emotional person, so bottling up all the time like I do is really bad for me.
We were sat in Jim's grass lawn now, as holding my crying girlfriend over a table and chairs was a little awkward. In my panic, I had found a spare kimono to cover both of us like a blanket. I apologized for misusing it like that, but Erika thought it was cute. Erika took a few swigs of tea and sighed. I held her free hand tightly under the kimono and rubbed her palm with my thumb reassuringly. I think I know the answer already, but what made you decide to contact me again after all that time? I asked Erika as I leaned into her warmth.
The champion.
She grinned. Yeah, I nodded and smiled gently. That's what I thought. The champion inspired both of us. Despite their young age, something about the way they battled and communicated with their Pokemon made us both feel like we weren't living our best lives. Erika calling me back then caught me by surprise and even scared me a little. But once I battled the champion, my hesitance to see her vanished. I knew that I had to. I had to really start living.
I love you. I love you, Sabrina.
Erika chimed, leaning her head on my shoulder and sighing deeply into me. She was smiling. Her expression was light and relieved. Red and deer champion faced or not, she had never appeared more beautiful to me than she was right now. I think it was because, finally, after all these years, I knew who Erika was. I love you too, Erika. I turned to kiss her cheek and leaned my head against hers.
That's not fair. I love you twice while I was crying, so I had to say it twice just now to make up for that.
She pouted. It's a good thing there's no one else around to see how unbearably mushy you're being right now. I smirked, burying my nose in her cheek.
Whatever. Anyway, I love you. If you're not quick, you'll miss your last chance to dump me.
Enough! I laughed. It's not going to happen. I'm more glad than ever that you're my girlfriend, so you're stuck with me. Hopefully forever.
Hopefully.
She quickly flung her arms around me under the blanket and gave me a possessive squeeze. A few moments later, she yawned, and I yawned. What an exhausting day. It felt like it had been days or even weeks, probably because things had been building up to this for so long. But I was smitten. I could scarcely comprehend how much I loved her and how loved I felt. I felt so light and confident about my feelings for the first time, like we had both done so much growing up in just one day. Hey, Erika. I looked at the ground, poking my fingers together meekly.
Yeah, babe.
She responded lazily, seeming like she was going to fall asleep on me. If you want to be free, I think you should move out of Celadon City. Move in with me, in Saffron. As I expected, Erika pouted, falling quiet into thought. I know better than anyone how much Celadon means to you, and I know I would be more than happy to move to Celadon instead, but
Yeah.
I felt her nod gently against my head.
I know what you mean. Maybe living in my passion project hasn't been healthy for me. I don't know. I'll think about it.
That's a good answer, I grinned. No matter how we go about it though, I'm looking forward to living with you. Erika beamed back. She doningly raised her hand to stroke my face, staring into my soul and my heart with perhaps the brightest and warmest glow her eyes had ever blessed me with.
Me too. Absolutely can't wait. This ends the tale of Erika. But this is technically still part one of a multi-part saga.
I guess it's only right for you to like read the author's note for this last one.
Oh, let me put on my Pikachu impression. Oh, wow. Taking a break and coming back to this fic reminded me how attached I am to these two and how indulgent this has been to work on. I definitely got emotional writing this chapter. I got to revisit a lot of major points of the story from Erika's point of view, which was so fun to write. For now, the story is finished. I know I originally intended to go on until Gen 2, but I think I'm going to make that a sequel story instead. This is a wonderful place to end it, but I really love writing these two, and I'm looking forward to starting the sequel later this year. If you read this far, I can't thank you enough. I hope you'll join me again for more of these two.
Well, you did a
And yes,
really good job with this.
yes, thank you, Pika Blue Pikachu. There we go, one more time.
Yeah! Yeah, we'll definitely come back for the sequel story eventually, but I think for now we'll let this story kind of speak for itself and, what is it, rest for a little while. But we'll definitely be back for, like, the sequel.
Yeah, probably sometime next year.
Yeah.
Well, Harry, once again, your choice in stories, long as they may be, it was impeccable.
I'm glad you guys are enjoying my picks, because there's always the worry that it's not gonna end up connecting with you guys as much as it did with me. But I'm glad it turned out as well as it did.
Kicked me right in the heart, so
Yeah,
mission accomplished.
it's especially impressive for the fact that, like I said, I think at the start of this, I never even entertained the idea of these two like being like a ship, but like the way it's done here is like done remarkably well, and if there's like a really quick and easy way to get me emotional, it's by writing a really well written and heartfelt romance story, because for some reason that's like the easiest thing to you know, get me having feels and stuff. I can't really explain why, it's just how I am. And yeah, this was really a really good story.
Um, yeah, like they definitely had fun just kind of fleshing out the world of early Gen 1 Pokemon.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess the risk of a lot of these Pokemon human-focused romance stories is that, well, the Pokemon elements kind of get downplayed a lot. Not necessarily a weakness, but it tends to be common.
I did enjoy Alakazam being like a voice,
Yeah.
like a voice of reason for Sabrina every now and then. It didn't happen often, but the little times it was there, it was appreciated.
Yes, like they took advantage of Sabrina's own psychic powers. Of course, she can talk with some Pokemon.
Yeah.
And yeah, telekinesis in Pokemon is pretty common in the movies, anyways. So yeah, it's completely reasonable and within the boundaries of canon.
Yeah. And like it's like a canon thing that she talks to her Pokemon to like tell them what moves to do. So this does make sense.
So yes, the Pika Blukachu. Yes, you have a wonderful grasp on Sabrina and Erika. And yeah, I love the other gym leaders popping in.
Yeah. I'd say you got the other gym leaders down pretty well as well, from what I can tell. Like as someone who's
Yeah,
like is like not too well versed in like a lot of Pokemon lore or whatever, I can definitely see that you had like a lot of you gave all the characters a lot of thought on how they should have been portrayed, and I think you did a really good job with that.
You got Claire's douchiness down pat.
Yeah.
And I guess since we're all gonna forget it, I know I could not help but stifle a laugh from Sabrina commenting on her resting jerk face from chapter 17.
I didn't remember that line at all. That was amazing. I had to like take a step back on that because I was like, that was yeah, that was really interesting.
Oh my.
Um,
And yes, a round of applause for our narrator Nova.
yep.
From being making it 6 episodes instead of 12.
And this makes it our second long form story that we've fully completed, I think.
I mean, if we're gonna be pedantic until we make our sentence incomplete.
Oh, true. Well,
That we reached to the end.
yeah, we reached to the current end, yeah.
Yes, this would be the second one, unless you really want to count the group chat story as long form.
Yeah, I don't think that really counts.
It counts in my heart. Oh gosh. Yeah, maybe because it's midnight, but I am exhausted and in a way that not like Erika, but I felt her feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, I can see that.
yeah, I'm just finishing. This is emotionally exhausting for the right reasons.
Yeah, I'm probably like going to bed right after this.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I don't think I have much else to say other than Pika Blue Kachu that never changed that username. You you have just you have something uh, made something special from the most what's the word I'm trying to say. You made something special from the most unlikely of combinations.
Yeah,
And I think that's honestly that's what fan fiction is all about sometimes.
I'd agree with that.
So yes. Um I have to say, what about you, Nova?
It, you can definitely feel the love that and effort that's been put into this it, because well, regardless of the actual length of the whole story itself, it still never really leaves you. It never really leaves you feeling like nothing's going on at any point. There's always something that's related to the overall related to the overall narrative, and it definitely tied up all the loose ends pretty nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, then I guess we have a consensus. This is a good story, and you should all read it. And yeah, since for the umpteenth time, I will remind everyone this is the last normal episode of Story Time probably for the year, because from here on out, our main objective is tackling Star Wars Duel of the Fates, which means Nova will be taking a bow probably for the rest of the year. So we thank you, Nova, for your contributions to Storytime with Scrappy for the past 8 months.
Yeah. It's gonna be an interesting ride because it's gonna be a bunch of people that have never been on Storytime before. And Xavier that's appeared like once or twice. So it's gonna be
Really,
an interesting one.
honestly, I think the only new person is our one our one woman.
Hmm.
Like
Maybe.
Lewis, if he's available, plus Tanner and Xavier they've all been in at least 2 episodes.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I forgot Lois was showed up a couple of times.
Yeah, we should probably get him on more.
Hmm.
Well,
Yep.
until next time.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, I should also inform you, we will probably take a 2-week break after this to get our cast in order.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one. And yeah, that yeah, gonna look forward to doing the sequel story for this in like I don't know sometime next year or something because I do remember it being better, but it's been a long time since I've read the story like all through. So yeah, we'll see how that goes, and hopefully, the next long form thing I decide to do for the like bring up for this show turns out just as well as these two have done.
Hopefully we can get some more people involved next time.
Yeah, if we, because like the other story I had on the docket was a Toho Kingdom Hearts crossover, and if we're gonna do that, we're gonna need a lot of like voices, so that might get a bit messy.
Like we've all just agreed that Donald is a lost cause. We're just gonna use a natural voice, or like maybe Xavier can use a pitch modulator, but
That could that could
lost
work.
cause.
That could work.
Unless Tanner has been practicing his what's his name, Tony Anselmo impersonation.
I'd like to at least have Jason on for that, just because he actually knows Kingdom Hearts like as much as I do.
Something. He who knows nothing understands nothing. How do you do, fellow kids? Yes. So that is. This has been Erika once more by Peak of Lukachu. We will reconvene in 2 weeks for the unused script for Star Wars Episode 9, Duel of the Fates, as our 30th episode spectacular. Until then, this has been Storytime with Scrappy and Friends, and we bid you all a safe good night.